Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I'm very excited. I have Tanner Harris. He is the president and managing member of Blue Nose Aerial Imaging. Tanner, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Jordan. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have you. So for our listeners who haven't heard of you and your franchise, what do you do?
Yeah, so we started Blue Nose Aerial Imaging just in the tail end of September of 2019. And, to give you a little bit of background about how we got to where we are, most of our folks are actually coming to us from an aviation background, whether that's in the military or in the commercial airlines. And right around this time last year, everybody, I'm sure everyone's familiar by now, COVID kind of took a pretty gnarly hit on the aviation industry. So many pilots within the airlines in particular started to kind of pivot and look to reskill themselves. And I had several colleagues of mine that I had flown with in the past, and they reached out to me and they were kind of interested in getting into the drone space, which is what Blue Nose Aerial Imaging does. And trying to set up their own business as a drone services provider. So that's kind of where it started. And then right around, I guess it was early August or so of 2020, we had pretty much buttoned up everything with the franchise paperwork and the contract and had that foundation laid. And then it was off to the races. So really, at the end of the day, Blue Nose Aerial Imaging has turned into a kind of a small drone services provider here in Denver, Colorado, into more of a focus on a nationwide franchise, because primarily within the commercial drone space, there's a real need for one, national coverage, and two, an adherence to standardization and quality controls. And so utilizing a franchise business model just makes a ton of sense in that regard. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're focused on. Really hoping to expand out to about hopefully about 50 locations by the end of 2021. So yeah, that's kind of a quick and 30,000 foot view of where we're at right now.
Awesome. Very cool. So you kind of hinted at this before, but what was that light bulb moment saying, hey, franchising is the way to go and the way to expand rapidly?
Yeah. It was, I mean, truly almost 12 months to the day when we launched our original website, bluenoseaerial.com. And within about 24 hours, I had 5 colleagues that I'd flown with in the Navy before, and then in the airline at the time, reach out and say, how do we do this? And at the time, I had no idea. It's like, I'm coming from an aviation background. I don't really have any, business background or any experience within entrepreneurship. Certainly none within franchising at all. And then, as I tried to figure out a solution and how we could help out, fellow pilots that I'd been working with in the past. And then I'll obviously, try to expand the Blue Nose business as well. It just became more and more readily apparent that franchising was the way to go. It was a great way to kind of keep a very flat structure, expand quickly with an emphasis on standardization. And it just makes a ton of sense, especially when we're trying to provide maximum autonomy for our franchise partners and flexibility with their schedule, control over, what it is that they're actually doing. And then keep it super, super affordable for folks as well. That's really kind of the name of the game, especially in these last 12 months with COVID. We don't need to do anything that's going to be burdensome or a drain on their own personal finances. This is a way for them to take back control over their own life and have a little bit more diversity in their income streams and just kind of looking more towards the future and what that holds and have a little bit of say in what it is that they're doing. So that to me, when I started really looking into franchising, that was just a no-brainer at that point. This is the way to go.
Very cool. So what has it been like going through the franchising process and bringing on franchisees into your system as someone who doesn't necessarily come from a franchise background?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, just like any aspect of business, is to make sure that we're doing it the right way, right? There's a lot of regulations and legality about any type of business, but in particular within franchising, certainly here in the United States. So there's federal laws, there's state laws. So those are all things that you really need to be paying attention to. Absolutely seeking the advice of an attorney or a franchise law firm in that regard. So it starts there, right? Having a good relationship with an attorney in that sense, and making sure that there's a good dialogue between you and your counsel, and trying to develop that type of franchise agreement that really fits the model that you're trying to go after. And I think we did that pretty well in the beginning. And then there's always room for improvement. I mean, that was kind of the first iteration, and we set that out in August, like I said, and then you just learn something from every transaction, right? Every time you bring on a franchise partner, you're learning how to do something better the next time around. So we certainly don't have all the answers. We're still definitely a startup, but we're moving pretty quickly. And in the last 6 months, we've brought on about 18 franchisees, and we're really trying to button up that process and make that a very streamlined turnkey solution for folks, so that all that headache and all that work ahead of time is just done, and I think that's the value of any franchise. So we're really trying to focus on that, and trying to, at the end of the day, it's all about continuing to add value. I mean, whether that's legal assistance or putting people in touch with accountants, having a business operations platform like a centralized software, having strategic partnerships in play, having the ability to talk with subject matter experts in a number of different fields. And then, ultimately it's about having revenue opportunities for these folks as quickly as we possibly can. So that's what we're continually focusing on, that and trying to add value in a number of different ways. And, a lot of that comes back down to our website as well. And how not only is it's kind of our core marketing platform, obviously, but we're also implementing, a learning management system. And because within the commercial drone space, there's certifications that are required. There's continuing education requirements. There's different levels of designations, if you will, like a level 1 pilot, level 2 pilot, level 3 pilot. So there's a lot of information that needs to be absorbed by our franchise partners, especially if they're coming to us without an aviation background. So that's really one of the things that we're trying to focus on, is implementing that learning management system within our website as well, to just keep adding value for our franchisees going forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard you mention standardization several times already, and you're in a very unique market because it's quite fragmented. I'd love to hear, like, how is it competing in a very fragmented market where there is legality to it, but from a standardization, at least from an outsider perspective, it isn't necessarily that, especially like state to state or city to city.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, that's good insight into the overall, state of the commercial drone space right now, because when you look at it on one end of the spectrum, it's kind of the Wild West. You've got thousands of operators out there who might not be certified, probably not insured. They probably haven't gone through a whole lot of training. So it's just a ton of people just doing their own thing. And then on the other end of the spectrum is more well-established companies who might have, a drone operator on staff, or maybe a whole drone team on staff, and they've got the equipment, and they've really focused on that, and to try to flesh out their aviation department, if you will. Depending on what that company does and what vertical they're in, it may or may not make sense for them to absorb those costs on an annual basis. So what we're trying to do at Blue Nose Aerial Imaging is really kind of fill that void in the middle, right? So try to raise the bar from this end and focus on standardization and certification and training. And then approach this other side of the spectrum and say, hey, does it make a ton of sense for you to keep those costs on the books for, for your operation when you can contact us and do this on a as needed case by case basis, So it's unique in the sense that standardization is critical in manned aviation, which is where most of us are coming from. Most of us at Blue Nose, I should say, right? So a lot of military aviators, a lot of commercial airline pilots, standardization, checklists, SOPs, education and training, that is core to the safe operation of any aircraft. And because the commercial drone operator space is so new, that culture isn't quite established yet. There's a lot of initiatives to make that more robust and more, I think, fleshed out, I think, throughout the entire country, really try to expand that type of culture. But right now, it's just not there, not to the extent that it needs to be. So there's an emphasis on trying to implement that type of emphasis on standardization, which is to some extent a personal decision for folks, right? It's like, well, should we do this? Maybe not. It costs me time. It costs me money. It's like, well, at the end of the day, you're going to be required to, right? The FAA will continue to evolve the structure of Part 107. So that's really our emphasis is to do this the right way, to do this the way that we're all familiar with from a manned aviation background, and really try to implement that across the board with how we conduct our business, how we interface with our clients, and how we work with our strategic partners as well.
I love that. And you know what, to build on that, it like this standardization, these SOPs, all this learning, it helps give your end clients, this peace of mind as well. That's not some, Joe Schmo off the street operating as a drone and taking videos and pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's critically important. I mean, if we're flying a drone through somebody's window or something, we're never going to be doing business with them ever again, right? So we want to make sure that that's never a thing, right? We've got those checklists, we've got those SOPs that our partners and our clients are confident in the services that we're providing to clients across the spectrum. So it's just really critically important that it's done the right way, and that's where I think a franchise business model is perfectly suited for what we're doing, because of the emphasis on scalability and standardization that any franchise business model can really achieve. I mean, it just makes a ton of sense for us. So that's we're excited about it. 2021, I think, is going to be a pretty big year for us.
Very exciting. Yeah. So, you have 18 franchisees now. You're shooting for 50 by the end of this year. So tell me, like, how are you finding all these franchisees? Like, this is almost unheard of in the industry.
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
It's been pretty quick, and for us, it makes that job a little bit easier because, one, it's a very non-traditional franchise. It's very, very affordable. I mean, it's nowhere near as expensive as most franchises, and there's a lot of flexibility too. There's no sales quotas or revenue requirements actually, because it's kind of designed almost as a side business for pilots, to kind of complement or augment their normal 9-to-5 job, if you will. But it's also got the ability to scale out to a 40 hours a week or more if you wanted to, right? So we focus on that type of flexibility. So I think because of that, it attracts a lot of franchise partners to just kind of to the model. What we're doing now to really achieve that type of traction is purely just tapping into our professional networks. Many of us are members of different trade associations or business groups or aviation groups, things like that. So we put that out there, and usually we have some pretty good results. So we're focusing on that kind of internally for now. Eventually, we're gonna run out of that, right? And we're gonna kind of tap that. So we're going to have to start looking elsewhere to try to continue that expansion. But at least for right now, in the last 5 or 6 months, that's what we've been focused on, and that's where we've probably made the most headway with most of our franchise partners so far.
Awesome. I love it. And like with your network, you already have that kind of trust with these people. So it's not, you don't have to start from scratch. They know you, they like you, and they're open to hearing it. Right. And from what it sounds like, they have this, this aviation and flying experience already.
Absolutely. And that's actually really critical, because the vast majority of these folks I've never met before. Right. So there's an aspect of trust behind this, right? Because I think a franchise model is very much interdependent, right? I mean, when they do well, I do well, and vice versa. That said, when we've got dozens or hundreds of people approaching us and they're trying to come on board with, like, well, how do we achieve this level of standardization? There needs to be, an agreed upon common baseline of who they are, the type of adherence to training and standardization that they understand and recognize. And that's one of the beautiful things about aviation, is that they've all gone through very similar courses, whether that was, the military or the corporate aviation side of it, or the commercial airlines. It's very, very regimented, very structured, always. So even though I may have just met you, over the phone like 10 minutes ago, I know who you are to an extent, right? I know the type of training that you've gone through. I know the adherence to standardization and quality controls that you would be accustomed to in your professional day-to-day workspace, right? So that gives me a lot of peace of mind, and I think that adds to the kind of the caliber of the network that we're really trying to develop. So hugely important, but it's again kind of one of those intangible benefits of the franchisees that we're really focused on. It's kind of those target franchisees, because at any startup we need a good team, right? We need a solid foundation of people who are going to step up and have that mission buy-in and really do it the right way. And it goes beyond just a transactional relationship of profit and loss. I mean, there's more to it than that. So that's what we're really trying to build. Is a solid team that utilizes skill sets and experiences of people from a number of different backgrounds. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Very cool. I hate using this word, but I'm going to use it anyways. I love this shortcut that you found to like find your, let's call it, perfect franchisee. And switching gears a little, Tanner. You mentioned that there was this learning process that you have been going through with each new franchisee. I'd love to hear about some of the biggest learnings that you've had as you've scaled so far.
A lot of the commercial drone space right now is almost entirely within imaging, right? Photography and videography. And it's that way because there's a number of different drones out there that can do this, right? Some very, very nice cameras that are attached to these drones, and they're becoming more and more affordable. So it's becoming more prevalent. That said, I think you quickly realize that there's a lot more that you can do with drones other than just take, a nice looking photo. There's a lot more. So when you kind of get into the more specialized aspects of the commercial drone space, whether, we're talking about construction management or precision agriculture, or, I mean, there's even applications these days using drones for like sanitization within stadiums due to COVID, right? So, I mean, there's just a ton of different things out there. So I think that's one of the steepest learning curves is making that leap from just photography into more, industrial enterprise level applications that can really save a lot of time and money for clients throughout a number of different verticals. So that step requires a lot of research, a lot of know-how, and obviously we don't have all the answers to all of life's questions, right? So that's where we try to really focus on developing that team and having people that do have answers to those questions. So when we can develop a franchise network like what we're doing, we get pretty darn close to having excellent, like, expert insight into a lot of these different questions right out of the gate. So then it's a matter of implementing that standardization, and we do that through a number of different modules right now. Primarily, it's all virtual for now. Hopefully, here in the next few months, we'll be able to do some more in-person training once COVID kind of settles down. But that's kind of what we're focused on is really enshrining that level of knowledge and standardization within our training modules. So yeah, I mean that's kind of I think the hard part is achieving a streamlined solution to accomplish that, if that makes sense. So having all these different bodies of knowledge, and then boiling them down to some level that somebody across all walks of life could understand that, and then incorporate that into their day-to-day operation. That's challenging, right? So that's where an emphasis on a learning management system and standardized workshops and onboarding comes into play.
That's super interesting. Cause then like you don't need to bring on outside help. You're just leveraging your network. You can almost beta test these different types of drone services within it with these experts that you have as franchisees. And then once it's proven, you can just roll it out. That is genius, Tanner. I love it.
Well, I'm pretty excited about it. I think we got a pretty good model in place. And there's definitely a few folks that are a part of Blue Nose Aerial Imaging that are not franchisees that are really just instrumental to our progress and success so far. And those are subject matter experts in photography and videography and geographic information systems and remote sensing and marketing and there's a number of different people that are a part of kind of how we've been operating so far that have been just absolutely critical to our progress so far.
Awesome. So Tanner, one question I always like to ask guests is if if someone was just starting out as a franchisor, what advice would you give them?
I would say stick with your bread and butter. You know what and fall back on that. You've got experiences most likely in maybe one or two just key fields or industries, and you probably have some pretty solid experience in that. So if you can figure out a way to stay within that, because that way you can really start tapping into your own professional network, right? And you can start assembling that team in that sense. So stick with what you know, and then don't let your ego get in the way, right? Let other people help you out as well, because there's going to be a lot that you don't know, just flat out, and you need to be able to reach out and be able to absorb that information as quickly as you can, because that's what's going to help not only you as a franchisor, but all of your franchisees as well, to be able to embody that type of knowledge across a number of different aspects. So seek that mission buy-in from as many people as you can, and then stick with what you know, I think.
Awesome. That is fantastic advice. All right, Tanner. So we are nearing the end of the episode, and I always like to end them on something that I call the lightning round. So it's just some fast-paced questions coming at you. Are you ready?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. So first question is, what is one tool or app that you cannot live without?
Better software company. I use the B Pro app daily. It is critical to our operation.
Love it. And they're a great group of people as well.
They are fantastic folks.
Cool. All right, Tanner. Next question is, what is your favorite book?
Oh gosh. A long time ago, this is, back when I was a teenager, there was a book that really resonated with me pretty deeply called Fire in the Belly. And it was kind of, self-discovery, adolescence turning into young adults kind of thing. So it was a book that I read that just stuck with me. I handed it down to my, younger brother when I was done with it. And it's just a really interesting read.
Very interesting. I haven't heard of it, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I can't remember the author right now off the top of my head, but it was just fantastic.
Cool. All right, next question. Who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
Oh gosh. You know what, I've and not to just constantly sing the praises of the Better Software Company, but Doug McGregor and Steve O'Hara have just been just incredible. I'm so fortunate to come across them truly just by chance, and the level of professionalism and support that they've provided Blue Nose Aerial Imaging is what led me to you, Jordan. So I mean, they've been not only so helpful by implementing their own B Pro software, but beyond that, looking to expand our franchise on a much more holistic level. And they've just been absolutely critical to what we've done. So Doug and Steve, hats off to them.
Yeah, total rock stars, those guys. All right, Tanner, last question, I promise. Where can people find out more about you and your franchise?
Yeah, so we're our website is bluenoseaerial.com, all one word, all lowercase. Aerial is AERIAL. So that's our website. We'll be going through a new migration here in the next few weeks or so. So we're looking forward to seeing what that looks like in the next month or so. And we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and happy to chat with anybody who's interested.
Sweet. Tanner, thank you so much for coming on. You dropped a ton of knowledge bombs. I know myself and listeners will appreciate it.
Oh, Jordan, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much. It's always good to chat.
Of course. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.